Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I'm Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst at friendsoffantasybenefits.com. Joining me on this episode is Mike Warner. Mike, how you doing?
Doing great. Had a day off from work. I'm feeling refreshed.
Good. I don't know what days. Yeah, I don't know what days off are anymore. You know, now that baseball season started, I don't think I've had a day off in a while. So
right.
We'll see. Sometime in July, I'll take a week off or something like that. But joining us today is a special guest. It's Carlos Marcano from Pitcher List. Carlos, how you doing, my friend?
Awesome. I wish I had the day off too, but unfortunately I didn't. But I can complain. I'm doing great. I'm doing
good.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then plug all your work.
Sure. It's kind of easy. On Twitter at CA Marcano. And I'm doing a weekly article on Pitcher List every Friday mornings. So this week, I think Alex Cobb is going to be around. So I think it's going to be maybe interesting, I guess. So, and I also do some stuff for six-man rotation and prospects 365 from now and then.
That's awesome, man. I'm a huge fan of everybody at Pitcher List. Big fan of yours. We've gotten to know each other a little bit over the last few months, so I thought it was about time I had you on the podcast. Got your takes. We got some hot takes from you during Potapalooza, and so I'm ready to get some more. You can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. You can reach Mike on Twitter at Mike Warner FWFB, and if you like tuning in live, we do this live on Monday night. Some of you are watching live right now. Feel free to throw questions into the chat, and at the end, if we got time, we'll get to them. But let's start off with some news. Cody Bellinger, hairline fracture in his leg. This does not sound good at all. I mean, this was supposed to be like a minor injury after the collision at first base. He dealt with shoulder surgery in the offseason. Carlos, how worried are you on Cody Bellinger right now?
Oh man, I'm starting to feel like he's such a bad luck guy. You know, when these unfortunate kind of injuries that look minor but then take a month and a half, messes up with everything that you were expecting from him. Everyone is expecting a rebound season from Cody, so it's a shame. But and as you said, now it looks like it might be some time, and who knows how it will be for him when he come back. I mean, he should be fine, but he will lose a month and a half, and that's always a shame. You know?
Yeah, it's a huge bummer. I mean, you were getting him at a discount in draft season, and you were like, okay, I'm getting a guy who's a top 5 pick coming into 2020 in the second round in some leagues. I got him like pick 26 in a league, and I was stoked. Yeah. I mean, I got to pair him with Trey Turner. I was like, oh, this is an awesome start, right? And Trey's been great, but it's been a bummer to lose Bellinger for this amount of time this early. Yeah. Mike, what are your thoughts on Bellinger? Are you worried about this?
Absolutely, I'm worried about it. I think you have to chalk it up to a significant amount in this time that you're not going to be able to replace a first, second round guy on your team. So really, if you're trying to overcome this, you're going to have to try and really work the waiver wire, get some production that way. Zach McKinstry has been awesome in his stint, whatever. And I really like him as somebody that potentially is going to get some nice short-term value, a long minor league track record of making a consistent amount of contact, can get on base as well. And he's shown pretty well in a short amount of time. He's getting almost full-time playing time as well, which I'm really into. So I would say, like, for a Dodgers fill-in, that's certainly a guy that's worth looking at. But no, you're not going to be able to replace Cody Bellinger. It's really a shitty situation. And I mean, you're going to have to kind of make do.
We'll just hope the hairline fracture doesn't keep him out for too long, but it's definitely going to miss a little bit of extra time now. Steven Strasburg, speaking of missing time, Strasburg always misses time at some point, and now it's a shoulder issue. It was carpal tunnel in the offseason, right? He had the surgery, and then he tore a tendon in his calf that he apparently didn't need. He might have needed it after all, because now he's got a shoulder issue, and people are like, well, calf and shoulder aren't connected. Of course it's connected, because when you're changing things with your mechanics to compensate, it's going to mess you up. And now he's on the IL after looking really, really bad in his, his last start late in spring. Mike, what are you doing with Strasburg right now if you have him on a team?
I mean, you can't drop him, but if I'm in a league that's not NFBC and I'm trying to trade, like even in a dynasty format, I'm trying to get rid of him at this point. Like he's getting up there in age, and these are all things I feel like it's an automatic thing. Like between you and I talking on a show, we have to talk about Steven Strasburg. Like, what's our Steven Strasburg update for this month? But for this season, I'm really concerned if we're going to keep it short term. His velocity kind of is the same as it was in 2020 in a very short amount of time. And his swing strike rate is down. Like I think you said it best, Justin, he's just overcompensating for a lot of other things that are going wrong. And I'm personally, for this season, not throwing it out, but I don't think we're going to get much from Strasburg the rest of the way, if anything, honestly. I mean, I'm sure he'll come back and pitch, but as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to shoulder injuries, that's when like everything goes off for me and I get extremely concerned. So right now I'm trying to move Strasburg if I can, even again in keeper dynasty leagues, because I think we're just going to hit a situation. Like if you look at his track record too, he's been injured almost every single season, with the exception being 2019. And I think short-term wise, we've really been looking at 2019 as like one of the better case scenarios for him, but his velocity has been dropping slowly throughout the years. This is a guy that's, now getting to his mid 30s, especially in keeper dynasty. Like I would probably take my chances on a starter that is a little bit younger, or another, bat at this point, because I think over the next 3 to 5 years, Steven Strasburg is going to really start to like drop when it comes to his overall value. And for this year alone, I'm thinking that he's definitely going to be somebody that maybe we get for the last couple months of the year, but when it comes to shoulder, it's a real problem. So, I mean, yeah, I'm concerned.
Yeah, he was a guy prior to the start of the season saying if you drafted him, I would try to get 75 cents on the dollar, because I watched his last spring start and I actually logged every single velocity on his fastball, and he was really, really struggling. And I was like, yeah, this is not good. Something is seriously wrong. And it took 2 starts, but we saw it finally. Carlos, what are you doing with Strasburg?
I mean, it's the beginning of the end. Unfortunately, he cannot stay healthy. We always knew that. We weren't expecting a full season from him. You never expected from him. But as Mike said, shoulder is like, the death sentence of a pitcher beyond, the elbow and things like that. And dropping bellow, shoulder. I mean, you just tie the knots and it all says walk away and hope for the best. I mean, I would love the guy to come back and be the best he can be, because he's amazing when he's at the best of his game. But unfortunately, all the red flags are there, and I don't think it would get better. And the thing is that now the Nationals are in a really tough position, but because they don't have anyone, the area, I think Fetty or I mean, you cannot replace him, and you don't even have average guys to fill the spot. So it's a really, really bad situation for everyone.
Yeah, it's really bad for the Nationals because their offense is struggling outside of what Soto and Turner are great, right? Ryan Zimmerman's playing really well, but other than that, the whole lineup has been struggling. Now you're missing, Corbin's been struggling. Now Strasburg's hurt. I mean, Max Scherzer and Juan Soto and Trey Turner can only do so much. And they were my World Series pick this year. I was like, oh
God.
But, is what it is. Let's talk about kind of some COVID situations, because we're seeing things pop up. We saw it pop up tonight. The Phillies had, 3 guys who were in contact with a coach who tested positive that had to sit out. We've got the Astros, who are hopefully getting some guys back tomorrow. Who knows exactly who or how, Jose Altuve was mentioned as a guy who could be back. Now it sounds like he might not be back. The Twins lost the entire series against the Angels over the weekend. They're supposed to play a doubleheader tomorrow. I think, I don't want to necessarily dig into like individual players and things like that, but just from like an overall perspective, Carlos, like how are you approaching things with COVID clearly still being an issue in terms of affecting baseball and therefore affecting our fantasy teams?
Yeah, I mean, and we're going to have to live with that for at least the next couple of months. I think the MLB teams have the opportunity of getting most of the people vaccinated and stuff, but it will be still a concern, and it's one of those situations that you never know. I mean, I was hurt by the Twins losing so many games because I have Nelson Cruz everywhere, for example, and well, I also have Paxton, but that's another story. But but imagine losing Nelson Cruz 2 weeks, and then okay, they will do the double headers, but it's not the same. It's not the same having your guys playing on the regular schedule, especially older guys that they might not play double headers, things like that. It messes up with a lot of stuff fantasy wise, and for sure in real baseball, it's always a mess. It's always a mess. So and this is a thing that we can't control. We are not going to have any much to say about it. Just wait and see. Hopefully, if you have to have enough guys on your bench for this situation. I think that's the only thing you can do. Get enough replacements in your bench and try to work it around.
Mike, is there anything fantasy players can do to kind of soften the blow when these kind of things happen? Because these things are going to continue to happen, right, for at least the next few months until enough people are vaccinated, where maybe there's herd immunity within Major League Baseball, right? And even then, like, we don't even know if that's a possibility for this year. This could continue to be an issue all year long. So are you just kind of throwing your hands up and like, oh, well, screw it, there's nothing I can do? Or is there something you can do?
Well, first off, like, I don't even know if we can count on this season being such a scenario where we could have herd immunity, because it's not like you can force people to get vaccinated, so some guys really might not get vaccinated ever. I know there's a lot of personal people in my life that feel that way, and ultimately you can't make somebody do anything. So I mean, from like Carlos kind of said, like, from something that we can control, before the season started, I had in the back of my mind, maybe not as much as I did in the short sprint, but I had in the back of my mind, like, I don't necessarily want 4 or 5 guys from one team, because that's going to end up being a scenario where if you have the Twins and you have 4 or 5 guys, then, you might be really screwed there. Actionable things that you can do for this year, I mean, that would end up being either an NFBC, making some moves to try and, spread out, what type of guys you have from each roster, or in leagues where you can make trades, try and even it out a little bit that way. But that's really the extent of what you can do. I mean, these things just pop up, and, in a sense, it is kind of throw my hands up and, pray that we can get through some of this stuff. But you hope that even when they're making up these games too, it's not like you're getting these guys that you would have had for 2 games in those specific games in one day. You might end up having them split, one of those games or whatever. Like, it's a whirlwind that I think are being shown very early on, and in a very loud way, is just not over, and it's going to be a part of our game for a little bit. Hopefully for a little bit, maybe a little bit longer, who knows? But I think the best thing you can do is try and spread out the shares of guys that you have from each team, and hope that you can do it that way. But in NFBC, if you have, if you're a guy that has Byron Buxton, Nelson Cruz, and some other guys from the Twins on your team, then you're probably in a scenario where this happens, and you're gonna have to work around it, and it's just gonna be a narrative. And the thing though is that everybody's dealing with this in some way, and that's in personal life and in baseball. So I think all of us are just trying to get over the hump with it, and really just try and persevere through it. And fortunately, it is just a game as opposed to real life, and I would much rather try and manage my players in a fantasy sense than definitely in the real life sense. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I did, just as what you mentioned, is I try not to stack players on teams. Like in DFS, it's fine, right? It's one day, right? So, but in season, like I just tried to make sure, like, I wasn't going to end up with 4 or 5 of the same same guys on one team. I did it on one team, the Friends of Fantasy Benefits main event qualifier, and I stacked Nationals. And so, of course, like the first week of the season, I was screwed. So just, be kind of cautious about it. And then multi-positional flexibility, right? I'd rather have maybe a little bit lesser player in order to make sure I've got double or triple eligibility with a few guys. So that way, if something does happen, I can move guys around a little bit and try to soften the blow of that. So, I mean, that's really all you can do. And at this point, it's hard, but start paying attention to the guys who are going to pick up eligibility. A lot of guys are going to start picking up extra positional eligibility here over the course of the next few weeks.
That's a good point.
That's right.
Christian Yelich hits the IL. I mean, there's nothing actionable we can do with this, right? But this is now a recurring back issue that has now popped up a few times over the course of the last few years of his career. Mike, are you worried about Christian Yelich in the back?
Not yet. I really thought that this was going to be a year that we would see a massive upswing in production from him, especially after a down, limited 2020 season. It's obviously not a great start, but he has had some injury issues in the past. He had a back issue in 2014, it cropped up again in 2015, and then he had an oblique injury in 2018. So we've seen some fairly significant injuries for him throughout his career. Now, I will say if the back injury ends up being something that keeps him out longer, because it doesn't seem like it's that severe right now, if it's something that ends up, kind of going along for the rest of the year and he's dealing with it for the rest of the year, then that's where I would be more concerned, from a future perspective. But this is a guy that I'm still really extremely high on for this year. He's only 29, and I really expect him to rebound in a significant way. So right now, I'm not really doing much with Yelich. I mean, it's way too early. If it was in the middle of the year and he ended up being on the 10-day IL for this injury or whatever, and we got word that it wasn't that severe, I don't think anybody would really be doing much. So I'm kind of treating it that way. I don't really think there's any replacements either on Milwaukee that's really worth mentioning. I know Billy McKinney has been getting a lot of run recently, and I don't really expect him to be doing that much with that limited playing time that he's getting. But overall, I'm still a big fan of Yelich for this year. I think that there's a lot to like, and as long as we don't catch word that the injury is much more significant than it's being led on.
Yeah, Carlos, anything you're worried about?
No, I mean that's spot on. The guy was having a WRC plus of 138. He was to an amazing start, and so it should keep on when he comes back. And I mean, back injuries, no, you're the best, man. And so it's not actionable to be honest, and just wait and see.
Yeah, I'm just interested to see, because we were seeing him hit a little bit better this year, but we're still seeing some of the troubling underlying metrics, right? Like the swing percentage was still really low, is under 40%. His ground ball percentage was rising still. Super early, small sample. I just want to see what happens when he gets back. Is he reverting to the guy he was before the breakout is my only fear. So, all right, Drew Smyly to the IL. And, I mean, this is a bummer, but, I mean, we kind of knew it was going to happen, right? Like, this is a guy who just hasn't been able to stay on the field. I was just really surprised that Atlanta put so much money into him for one season, considering – he didn't throw many innings last year. There were really good innings that he did throw, and he hasn't thrown a lot of innings over the course of the last 5, 6, 7 years. Carlos, are you? This is supposed to be a short-term injury, so he should be back pretty quick. Yeah. Are you worried about Drew Smyly?
Oh, totally. I'm always worried about Drew Smyly, and I cannot. Well, I mean, I know Atlanta needed the arms. I think there were other options that they passed that I don't understand why didn't they go for them, and they went for Smyly. I mean, he's not a bad pitcher, but he's a constantly injured pitcher, and I'm sure. I wish I'm wrong, but won't be the only trip to the IL for Smyly this year. So when you put that in the balance and you check what you were buying and getting when you got in with when you got him, I mean, I think it wasn't the best move by them, and he wasn't having a great start either. So. At the end, I think they missed a better opportunity as a team for this year.
Yeah, I didn't understand why they spent so much money on Smyly when other guys ended up going. And I mean, hindsight's being 2020, right? They didn't know exactly what the market was going to look like, but they did know coming into the year that they were going to have arms like Mike Soroka, who was going to start the year on the IL. Guys, young arms like Ian Anderson that aren't proven, that they were going to put money into Charlie Morton, who's got a long injury history as well. Like, there's a lot of risk built into this. I mean, what should be a really good rotation if everything goes right, but it just felt like a super risky move.
they should have gone Gosman. You know, I think that would have been a great fit for Atlanta, to be honest. But I mean, they know better, I think.
Gossman might have really pushed for San Fran, though. He might have been like, "Hey guys, give me a deal."
Yeah.
Mike, are you? I mean, you've been a Smiley guy in the past. I'm pretty sure. Are you still on the Smiley train, or have you jumped
played
off?
for the Rays? Because he played for the Rays, I'm just automatically a Smiley fan. That's
pretty much. Him and Sonnenstein.
Sonnenstein. I brought him up the other night on Twitter because it was like, I forgot what the relation was, but the Rays were just getting their ass kicked, and it reminded me of like Franklin Gutierrez versus Andy Sonnenstein from like 2008, 2009 area. He went like 19-22 or something against Sonnenstein. I digress, but Smiley made some changes last year. I realized it was a short sprint and we can't really glean a lot from that, but he made some changes, not only to his pitch mix, but mainly fastball velocity. He got like all the way up to 94 miles an hour in average fastball velocity. And it really, resulted in some great underlying metrics. Like he had a 2.97 ERA, expected ERA, which is the best of his career. In a couple starts this year, the velocity has ticked down a little bit. It's more in the 93-ish range. But he dealt with some left arm stuff. I mean, he had left elbow surgery back in 2018. He had a tight forearm in 2019. It kind of is expected that he's going to have some arm issues. And no, he won't ever, like he had 30 starts in 2016. I don't think he ever starts 30 games ever again in his career. But can we expect him to get to like 18 or so? I mean, the Braves threw him 6 and 5 innings in his 2 starts this year. Quality starts are hard to come by. I'm in a fair amount of quality starts leagues. Like it's hard to find starters that are going 5, 6, 7 innings nowadays. And with Smiley, like, yes, I realize that there's a lot of risk baked in here, but he's the same age as Steven Strasburg. He still can, dial it up to 93 miles an hour. He has some good secondary offerings. I'm not necessarily like promoting Smiley as a guy that's going to be like a top 40 starter or something like that, but I do have hope for this year. I believe the Braves, while they probably could have made a better move than Smiley himself, I think that they definitely saw some things that they were encouraged by, and I think we should be encouraged by it as well. So I think it's too early to really write him off for this season. But, this is definitely a little bit of a worry. Just I hope he only misses 1 start. If he misses more than like 2 or 3, then I'd say that we need to really start, firing off some bells. But for now, I'm still encouraged.
They should make him a reliever. Like, don't let him go out there 2 innings at a time, as opposed to going out there and trying to get 5 or 6. Because they've been letting him. They let him go 5 and 6 innings in each of his, his first 2 starts. Which, I mean, is great for fantasy, but I don't trust him to be able to do that over the course of a season. Like, put him out there for 60, 70 innings as an impact arm out of the bullpen. I think that would make a lot of sense for a guy like him. I love the raw skills. If this was MLB The Show and we could turn off injuries, I'd be all over it. But, so Brian in the chat's all, joking around, and here comes Justin on a, injury victory lap. You're damn right I am. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, this was a bad, like, if you thought that a guy who has never been able to stay healthy, or at least has not been able to do it for like the better part of a decade, was going to turn out 170 this year, it was just a bad process. Like, it's and I'm going to get booed at, I think, by Mike. But it's like the same people who are like on McCullers, like, this is the year McCullers is going to do it. I can't remember if Mike was on McCullers or not, but he's never done it before. You're damn right it's a personal attack. He's never done it before. It's a bad process. Like, just, stop trying to make guys who've never been healthy for some reason.
It can always happen.
It could. And if I'm wrong, you know what? I'll eat the crow for being wrong. But when we're talking about guys like this that have, and I don't want to be like the guy that takes a victory lap on every single injury, because that's
April 19th. Yeah,
on April 19th, right? But at the same time, like, follow the history of these guys. Like, what sets up, future injury is previous injuries, right? So it's like, and yes, for Smiley, it was baked into the price. For guys like McCullers and Strasburg, it was not baked into the price, right? We were still paying way too high of a price for those guys, and that was my bigger issue. If you lost Smiley, even if you lost him for the whole year, that was probably your 18th round pick, right? It's not going to crush you, but we've got to stop like just praying that guys are going to be healthy when they've shown us no ability to do that in the past.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish off kind of the IL news with Lance Lynn. This came out of nowhere, man. Like all of a sudden, like, you know, he went 6 innings in his last start. He wasn't his sharpest, but he still like did, you know, went 6 innings. I think gave up 2 earned runs, was fine. Like
10 strikeouts.
Yeah, like, you know, it was a good start. And then apparently he was dealing with something during the start. They put him in the IL. They say it's going to be a minimum stay, but there were some people who were worried about Lance Lynn coming into the year. Mike, were you one of those people, and are you worried now?
I was worried from a skills perspective prior to the year starting. Not for him. I think I wrote him up in the Fats Flutes column before the season started, and I essentially said that I think that he's still a strong, you know, SP3 type, but I certainly wouldn't take him where he was going in drafts. I mean, he was going in, you know, borderline the top 50. And it was not because of injury. So I'm definitely not going to take a injury victory lap here at all. I mean, he's years removed from his Tommy John, and he's been a fairly durable starter for a long period of time throughout his career. Yeah. But like this year from a skills, I even wrote up when he was facing Cleveland in his last start on the 15th. I was like, yeah, I might have been a little bit wrong on Lance Lynn. This is off after 3 starts. I rarely make any type of conclusions off of a couple outings or a couple of at-bats or whatever else. But I've watched Lance Lynn multiple times this year, and he looks even better than he did in his like career year in 2019. I mean, he's just been looking amazing this year. So right now I'm definitely concerned about the injury. It says like he's going to miss an extended period. I don't know if that's been updated recently. I'm hoping that it's not that long. The pro to this though is that we might be able to get Michael Kopech in the rotation, which we did the other day for a couple of innings, and that would be a really strong, ideal scenario for me in a lot of leagues because I have Kopech in a lot of spots. But it does say like here he's expected to miss 1 start. Lance Lynn is. So if that's the case, then you know I wouldn't be that worried. From a skills perspective, I was worried prior to the year starting. I still have those same concerns. He's definitely like really in the walk percentage area. Like he has a 3% walk rate right now. Like that's not going to stay. And there's some other things that won't stay either. But I would watch him a couple outings after this just to make sure that there's not some other lingering issues going on. Like you can tell a lot from guys pitching just from watching them start to start and see if they are kind of wavering in some manner, or if their mechanics are off in some manner. I'm still to this day, I don't know if, I mean, Yu Darvish has been fine this year, but I'm telling you, something's wrong with Yu Darvish, like something little that, I mean, maybe it's not going to end up being something little, but I've watched literally every start of his and he is not completely fine. And you can kind of see that in pitchers when you watch them start to start. So long-winded way of me saying a little concerned about Lance Lynn. I was concerned before the season started, but I definitely wouldn't like try and trade him or drop him right now. I mean, he's just been too good.
Jose Marmolos just took Dustin May deep on one of the nastiest pitches. I don't know that many people in Major League Baseball could have taken that pitch yard.
Was it low and inside?
It was at the knees, 97 with movement, and he just got the bat head on it and just line drive that fucker right out. But sorry, I was just amazed he was able to do that. Carlos, what are your thoughts on Lynn? Are you worried about him?
Not really. He already proved me wrong, as I have to say it, because I always think that he's gonna fail, and then. To be honest, I mean, 27 strikeouts and 2 walks this year, that's ridiculous, you know. That's elite pitching, and the guy is usually an inning eater, and I think he's gonna be fine. It looks like it's gonna be a minors thing, but the other part of is that he's not getting younger, so you never know if this starts a trend or something. But as Mike said, it's a matter of keeping an eye on his next starts. But I think it's going to be fine. He is just proven that he's a great pitcher, and I think he's not going to start doing bad now if the injury is not that you know, terrible or something. He'll be fine, I think.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine too. They said he's probably only going to miss 1 turn in the rotation. Yeah. Should be back, and like you said, I mean, he's just a horse. And this is one of the reasons I wanted him is he led the majors in innings last year, right? And he did it with really, really good ratios and strikeouts. And I just felt most comfortable, like, you know, there are going to be a lot of guys who were going to have trouble getting innings this year, and he wasn't going to be one of them. So misses 1 start, he'll be fine. You know, hopefully you stream someone in and didn't oversleep this morning on Patriot Day like I did even though I thought to myself last night, I went, man, you know what? Patriot Day's got to be coming up. And I went to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, woke up 10 minutes after game time started. I was like, ah, damn it. I do it every year. It's just like,
it could be worse. You could have wrote up the starting pitcher matchups for the day today and still woke up late like others.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I did a whole DFS column and still just totally forgot. All right, let's talk about some FAAB pickups of the week. The most picked up player was Kendall Graveman. It looks like he's going to be closing in Seattle. Shout out to Michael Simeone over at SP Streamer. He wrote up an article on Graveman back in November saying like, hey, this is a dark horse for saves. And I think people got kind of, distracted by the Rafael Montero trade. Montero was the guy, but he's already blown it and Graveman's in. So Carlos, are you excited about Kendall Graveman closing in Seattle?
I mean, he's the man, and he actually looks like a better closer than Montero. But I mean, we have to see him in the leverage situations from now on. But was it worth all this buzz? Yes, definitely. I mean, there's a scarcity of closers everywhere. I don't know. There's a ridiculous thing like 30 different guys are picking saves for all the teams, and you won't find saves easily this year. And it's a trend that's going to continue from now on. So whenever you can find a guy that looks solid and has a good approach to that position, you have to take him. That as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, in TGFBI, I have 0 saves. 0. It may change tonight because I did spend a lot of money on Kendall Graveman and Rafael Dolis. And like I said, the Mariners are now up 2-0. So I might actually get a save tonight, but it wasn't from like lack of trying either. Like I drafted like 6 relief pitchers in TGFBI thinking I'm going to crush it in saves. Trevor Rosenthal, Archie Bradley, Jonathan Hernandez, Zach Britton, Chris Martin. And the only guy who's gotten a save on my team is Nick Whitgren, but he was on my bench when he did it. So it's been an absolute.
And he's not closing anymore. So
yeah, and he's not. And I had to drop him this week because he's not closing anymore. So it's been a nightmare for saves this year.
I feel you. I had the Edwin Diaz situation. I mean, they look like the Mex weren't playing anytime soon, but he finally got 2 last week. So things will improve, Justin. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm not going to catch my wife. She's got Jake McGee and Josh Hader. It's like,
you're done. You're done there.
She's already 250 spots ahead of me in TGFBI. It's ridiculous. Just based on her amount of stolen bases and her saves already. Mike, are you in on the Kendall Graveman kind of bandwagon right now?
I absolutely am. He's a completely different completely different pitcher than when we remember him as a starter with the Athletics. Like his velocity is up, his movement is better. He has substantially risen his skills in ways that he's never done before in his career. So a good ground ball tilt on him. Again, he's throwing like 96 nowadays. He's going to be 100% the closer. I don't think that he loses the role, barring injury, which is a concern. He has been injured almost like every year of his career outside of 2016. So like you're looking at a substantial, lengthy injury history for Graveman. I would definitely monitor that and keep somebody, maybe the people that drop Montero, which I don't think people will, honestly, in 15-team leagues with the way saves are right now, like you guys kind of gleaned on, like I don't think people will drop Montero with the hopes that he possibly relinquishes the role whenever Graveman does go down, if he goes down. Best case scenario, he doesn't, and I honestly think that he could be a top like 20 to 15-ish closer if he were able to stay healthy all year. But this is not your old Kendall Graveman. He is a much better pitcher that we ever saw with Oakland, and I honestly think that he has a genuine possibility of being one of the better closers in the game this year, just if he's able to stay in the role and not get injured.
And it's not just injury either, right? He could be traded. Seattle isn't a team that's going to be competing.
Munoz there too. Like we don't know when Munoz will be ready, but whenever he is by far their best. Well, Ken Giles is still on roster too, but like whenever Munoz is ready, like he's by far their best reliever, and that could be a scenario. That's a great point about the trading piece. Although we have seen a lot in the past, I don't really I keep that in the back of my mind. But so many of these teams just don't do it a lot of times. They don't trade their closers. Some do, obviously, but some just keep them. So there you go.
Yeah, I just think that they want to get something. They're not, they don't need to necessarily even get much. Maybe it's just a spec prospect or something like that for a guy like Graveman. But you would have to think he's going to be pitching for contender. And that doesn't mean he won't be closing, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen some, some of these contenders already have to like move guys out of the bullpen.
Wow, no, they put him behind Montero to start the year. Seattle did.
Closers are going to be precious by trade date, so that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. So, I don't think he's going to hold the job all year, at least not in Seattle. Maybe he's lucky. Maybe we're lucky and he gets traded to, I don't know, a team like, I can't even think, St. Louis. Maybe they decide they want to move Alex Reyes back into the rotation. If Carlos Martinez can't get it going, they decide, hey, we want another back end arm, and Graveman's going to be cheap. So it seems like a Cardinals type move, or Atlanta. Like Will Smith hasn't been great. Chris Martin's injured. Who knows what's going to happen with him? They may decide to go for a guy like that.
Miami
gets into contention, or
yeah. So all right, the next guy is another closer. Potentially, right? Both Jordan Romano and Julian Merriweather hit the IL. So it looks really smart that I drafted Rafael Dolis in both of my main event leagues. Unfortunately, I dropped him already. And so now I had to go back and pay for him again. But Carlos, are you interested in picking up Rafael Dolis?
He is an interesting pick. I'm worried about his command and his control. He's a guy that tends to issue the extra walk that he doesn't need to, but and that for a closer it's risky business. But I mean, what are the options in that bullpen? It's a shuffling a deck of cards, and unfortunately, Merriweather looked like the closer there, the better option, but he's injured, and I think that the list can make the job. I totally think, but I'm a little bit worried about his walk issue. That would be. But as we said before, this is beggars ain't choosers, and we are in a scarcity market for closers. You have to try to get what you can sometimes, and so the list is not the worst option, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, are they really going to go with like David Phelps? I mean, that's like they could. I mean, they could do a committee too. Like it could be. Yeah. And I mean, Romano reportedly isn't going to be out super long.
He's supposed to come back the 25th.
I don't know how much I believe that. This is an injury that typically, even on the the faster side, takes 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah. And now they're saying he's getting back on the 25th, which is Sunday. I put triple digits on Dolis this week. I'm not going to regret it. I need saves in those leagues where I did this. Mike, are you interested in Dolis at all?
Yeah, I am. And even with Romano possibly coming back, like when first eligible, which is like the latest report that he, threw a side session yesterday and could be back on the 25th when he's first eligible. Even if he does come back, there's a reason that the Blue Jays went with Merriweather. And I'm not really clear on that because I mean, Romano has tremendous skills. I mean, top 10 closer-worthy skills at times. Now he does have a lengthy injury history. One of those mediocre starters in the minor leagues that really, came onto the scene when he became a reliever and was in the majors. But I can't help but think why they put Merriweather in the role in the first place. And even with Romano coming back, where does that leave Dolis? I think at the very least, it leaves them with a, even if they name Romano the closer, I think that you could have Dolis, still pick up saves here and there. A lot of his walk issues, which are a bit concerning to me, especially when you look at like the double digit rates and his bigger I guess the more sample size, like back in 2020, he had in 24 games, he had a close to 14% walk rate. So even if the walks remain, and he did have 3 walks in one outing this year against the Yankees, so that's kind of like really tilting things a bit. He offers a great amount of strikeouts. He's able to keep the ball on the ground a fair amount, and he's has some closer experience as well. So overall, I'm in for Dolis. I don't know, over under on saves for this year. He still hasn't netted one as of right this second. I mean, maybe 10 something like that. But in the landscape the way it is right now, we kind of need anything that we can get. And I'm fine with Dolis being on my roster, being somebody that could possibly get saves. But I am interested how this works out with Romano, mainly because I think that this could be a pro Dolis argument here. I don't know what exactly Merriweather showed. I mean, Merriweather was great, but Romano has been great from a skills perspective since he came into the majors. So I don't know if they're trying to use him for higher leverage situations in the 7th and 8th to get to maybe somebody a little bit worse in the 9th inning in a better matchups, or if they see something with Romano that they don't like to end games.
Well, and I think this is a really good point and something I hadn't necessarily thought about, but look at what the track record so far this year of the Blue Jays has been, right? They had Romano already in the bullpen. They went out and got Kirby Yates to close games.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
And now they had Romano healthy and they went with Merriweather. So maybe they want to use Romano in more high leverage situations. He's going to pitch in the spots. Sometimes it's going to be the 7th inning, or maybe he is the closer. We don't know. But I would not drop Dolis if you've picked him up, at least for a few weeks. So let this play out a little bit, especially because this kind of injury can reoccur really easily. So I would be very, very careful not to drop Dolis like I already did and then had to go back and repick him up. So Zach McKinstry was the 3rd most picked up player this week in NFBC Online Championships. Mike, you already talked about him a little bit. So Carlos, I'll let you talk this time first. Talk to me about Zach McKinstry. Is he a guy that you're interested in picking up?
So I have Lorenzo Cain and Teoscar Hernandez in my team. So I was desperately needing an outfielder for this FAAB cycle in TGFBI. So I started looking and I thought, wow, McKinstry is going to be really, really expensive, as he finally went. I think he went 150 in my league. So I wasn't ready to pay that for him. So I ended up picking up Jordan Luplow, who is getting more at bats, and it looks like he's finally getting to bat to righties in a good way. He got 2 homers from righties. So I think that it was coast-wise was a better option, but definitely McKinstry, he should do better than Luplow, and he, if you can afford it, it makes total sense. If you have the need, he's gonna get the at bats now that Bellinger is out, and there's always the Roberts always finds a way to get the most out of his roster with all that depth that he has in that lineup. So the guy can hit. I think his hard hit rate is a little bit lower than I would like to, but you are not drafting. You are not picking up him because of you are expecting him to give you, I don't know, 30 homers or something. You just want a reliable guy that can bat for some average and keep a good trend in RBIs and runs. So totally positive that it's a good pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think people already know this. I hate the Dodgers. I absolutely hate the Dodgers, right? They're a team that can go out and spend all the money in the world. They've got an amazing farm system, and then they luck into guys like this, right? It's like the rich just keep getting richer. And if I wasn't a Giants fan, I'd still hate them, I think. But he's already picked up outfield eligibility. He started the year as a UT only guy in a lot of formats. He's going to pick up second base eligibility. I think Dave Roberts comped him to Chase Utley. Like, that's some pretty high praise, coming from your manager. Gavin Lux is on the IL with an injury right now as well. So he's got multiple paths to playing time with Bellinger and Lux down. I think, you at least got to ride kind of the hot streak right now, especially going up against some of the pitching in the NL West. He doesn't have to go up against his own pitchers. So the rest of the pitching ain't that great outside of San Diego. So I'm grabbing McKinstry where I can. Mike, I'm assuming you are as well.
I'm sensing some envy there, Justin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I have nothing to complain about with 3 World Series titles in the last decade, right? But at the same time, like, it's just so frustrating to see a team that, it's. I mean, it's like the Cardinals. It's like the Yankees. They always they have all this money, and then they luck into these great trades or great pickups or these minor league guys who nobody thought anything of coming into the year somehow emerging.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's complete bullshit. I don't know how the Dodgers keep doing this. I actually have always pretty much liked the Dodgers all the way until they played the Rays in the World Series last year, and I was pretty upset watching them over and over again. I was finding any little thing I could talk shit about them, and then the thing that took the cake was Justin Turner after they won the World Series, going out their masses. I was like, this piece of shit, fuck this guy. But with McKinstry, now the pro to him is he's obviously big league ready. I think he's going to get multiple position eligibility, and somebody that throughout the minor leagues, like I already talked about, has a really good bat to ball skills. Plate skills overall are pretty solid. I don't think that he's going to be a 10% walk rate guy, but I do think 6, 7, 8% somewhere in there, which is close-ish to league average while making contact, being able to get on base with, and also have a pretty decent batting average. He has some power, not much speed in there, but the thing that we're not talking about is, yes, Bellinger, we're hoping for him to come back and all of that, and that definitely will affect McKinstry's playing time. But what about AJ Pollock? When was the last time AJ Pollock stayed healthy for longer than 3 months?
Last season. He did it last season.
He did, and that was a couple months. So that's why I said 3 months. But I think that with Pollock being a possible injury question mark, there's really nobody else. I mean, Chris Taylor is obviously playing the outfield and infield as well, but McKinstry kind of is locked into playing time as long as somebody like Pollock or Bellinger or another person that we're not even naming that plays outfield is sidelines. Now, if both of them, Pollock and Bellinger, are playing, I definitely think that will eat into McKinstry's playing time. And if you spent triple digits on him, then you're likely going to end up regretting that a little bit. But who knows how long that'll take. And in the meantime, I think he's going to be a really solid player, throughout, the next couple of months, however long it takes for these guys to get healthy and everything. So overall, I'm very high on McKinstry, not from a sense that I think he has that much upside, but from a position versatility standpoint, being able to really help out in multiple categories. I think that, he's certainly somebody that should be on everybody's roster and probably should be somebody that's playing no matter what until these guys do get healthy. So.
Well, and like you said, while this is the best team in baseball, I'll freely admit it. I do think they're the best team in baseball. There's a lot of injury risk on this team, right? I mean, Cody Bellinger's already down with injury. Justin Turner rarely stays healthy. Gavin Lux is already down with an injury. Corey Seager has had injury history issues. AJ Pollock's has injury history issues. I mean, there's going to be lots of paths for playing time for McKinstry. Even if guys do return, they'll figure it out. Even if it's just 4 or 5 days a week or something like that, they'll find ways for him to give guys days off, or it'll work itself out one way or another.
It's absolutely incredible. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but their lineup and their roster construction the last 4 or 5 years is just absolutely incredible. And I don't think it will ever be something that's talked about 20 years from now or something, but I mean, the way that they constructed this roster, I mean, I don't mean to suck the Dodgers' dick here or anything, but it's absolutely incredible. I just am in awe of the riches that they have at every position. They are just so ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
David Price is their 8th best pitcher, and he's in the middle of their bullpen.
All right, let's move on to the next most picked up guy in online championships this week, and that is Alex Cobb. And some people are going to go, Alex Cobb, he's got a 4.63 ERA.
Yeah,
I mean that's a little deceiving, right? He's got a career high strikeout rate right now, career low walk rate, pretty close to career best home run per 9. I mean, he is cruising right along, and on top of that strikeout rate, his ground ball rate is almost at a career high. Things are really trending in a very good direction for Alex Cobb. Carlos, you said you're going to write him up this weekend. Give us a little preview of what you're seeing.
Oh, plenty of great stuff. He is top 10, top 15 in K minus BB percentage, PCRA, CSW percentage, and he also it's keeping his command way in control with you check his zone percentage and O-swing percentage, and he's also top 15. I have him in the as a top 10 pitcher for the season right now, but for pitchers for more than 11 innings pitched. It's a really small sample. We all know, but he's shown he's doing fantastic. I mean, and to be honest, I wasn't expecting it from what he showed last year. I think no one is expecting, or maybe some wizard over there he knew something I didn't know. He has improved. And I don't see that trend stopping. I had to pick him in TGFBI. I only picked him and Ludlow. I think that's the best money I spent on FAAB of the whole year, to be honest. I think he is up for a really great return if you can manage to grab him right now. He will have a nice test this week in his next start, so that will show us a little bit more. But I think he's solid. He's solid.
All right, Mike, is he following the path of Dylan Bundy as a pitcher that leaves the Orioles, the new organization, the Angels, changes the pitch mix, and all of a sudden he's a better pitcher? Because that's what it seems like to me right now.
Yeah. That's what kills Alex Fast. He always says that they are only expecting to leave the Orioles to get better, but I mean something's happening, or something's not happening in Baltimore. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, Baltimore is not the first team you think of when you think of pitcher development. Absolutely, Kevin Gossman. Like, Alex Cobb is he's always going to be near and dear to my heart, just like Justin, talked about with Drew Smiley. I mean, if you play for the Rays, then I'm going to love you for life. So absolutely, I love Alex Cobb. But he is showing some really strong signs, and even I know he's throwing the split finger almost exclusively. He kind of just swapped the split and the sinker. He's always been kind of a ground ball tilt guy. Really been able to keep hitters off balance with a really nice curveball as well. His curveball is like low key one of my favorite pitches in baseball whenever it's on, but we just haven't unfortunately seen him be completely right now for multiple years. And even in the, really since he's left the Rays, he's really struggled to find consistency. We're talking about 2 starts here, so I don't want to sit here and say that like a 33-year-old out off of many injuries with 2 starts under his belt is all of a sudden a changed man. But he is resembling a lot of the skills that were, apparent back in the, 2014-16 range, back when he was a better starter and everything. So like, I'm very encouraged by Cobb. I think that there's, especially with the Angels, facilitating their rotation the way they are, there's a scenario where like they keep his innings down, but actually is a pro from a skills perspective for us, because then that will give us a little bit better results. I think that once we see how it impacts his home run rate, that'll be a key as well, because I think over time that, he always has been somebody that struggled with the home run ball. He's only faced the White Sox and Kansas City, which actually have been 2 pretty good offenses thus far. But like overall, I'm kind of tempered in terms of my expectations for Cobb for this year, but I am very encouraged by what I've seen, mainly because they have obviously changed the way that he approaches games. And as long as he can stay healthy, if we can get, he hasn't thrown 100 innings since 2018. If he can throw like 140 innings and be somewhere in the vicinity of like a 4-ish ERA, 4.2 ERA, like with decent strikeout numbers, he's not going to be a 31% strikeout guy, or a 35% strikeout guy. Sorry. But, 27% strikeout with, 4 or 5% walk rate, like that's going to do. If he can get like 140 innings, that's going to be a really, really serviceable start and one of his better years as well. So that's what I'm hoping for.
And his fastball is fine. It's 94, 95. So that's a good sign for a guy his age. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially someone who's had the thoracic outlet syndrome surgery. Yeah. So, that was the big thing, was like that kind of derailed his career. He's finally getting back on track. He pitches in the AL West. He doesn't have to, pitch against his own team. He gets Seattle, Oakland, Texas. It's a pretty decent division to pitch in right there. So, all right. Let's talk about Jed Lowry. Speaking of guys coming back from the dead, 37-year-old Jed Lowry, looking like he's going to win a batting title in Oakland. Speaking of leaving teams and then becoming good again, leaving the Mets, it just seems to be another thing that can resurrect your career after he robbed them blind. I think he had 9 total plate appearances for that contract in New York. Are we believing this there, Mike?
I am. I mean, he's somebody that for his career has a 82% contact rate and a 10% walk rate. So we've always known that his skills are really good from a plate skills perspective. A couple home runs earlier are going to kind of throw his power numbers out of whack a bit or whatever. But really, in a full year, it's a guy that can hit double-digit home runs, have a pretty solid batting average, like 270-ish, with upside for more depending on how things go. Obviously, the overwhelming narrative here is his injury history, and it's extensive. If you want to look into it, you can take a couple hours out of your day and really dive in to his injury history. But I think that he's extremely valuable in the sense that he's multi-positional eligible. At least last time I looked, I haven't looked at him in the last couple days or whatever. But ultimately, I think that he's somebody that's going to really provide value across the board outside of stolen bases, and I think he's going to play. So I'm on board Lowry as long as he stays healthy, which is a big if, and we'll see how long that is. But he did accrue 560 plus at bats for 2 years straight prior to 2019, and then a lost 2020. So there's a scenario here where, and in those full seasons, his last full season in 2018, he had 23 home runs, 270 average with 99 RBI and 78 run scores. That's really going to do. That's a really solid slash line for him, and something that I'm definitely interested in. So yes, I think Lowry has a year or two left where he can be a really serviceable fantasy player, and this year's included.
Yeah.
Are you on the same page, Carlos?
Yeah, I love the guy. I'm an A's fan, so I love happy returns. So and I hope he wins that batting title, but he won't. But he will be useful nevertheless. And I like the fact that he used to be a guy that his OBP could be in 360, 365. So that's something we are looking at. At the start of this season, he's getting a lot on base, and that's great, especially for a team like Oakland that needs to get their guys on base a lot, because it's hard for them to get them to drive in the runs. But I mean, he has some power, 22 homers, some batting average, and it's a good story at the end. Guy comes back to Oakland and does great. It's not difficult to root for him, and I think he'll do fine. At least for what you're expecting from him.
Yeah, I mean, you get him for free, right? I mean, nobody drafted him. He was 0% zero roster to the start of the season, and nobody was rostering Jed Lowry. So I mean, he's virtually free. The wheels could come off at any time, right? He's 37, long track record of health problems. But you just ride it until the wheels come off, because
that's it.
Who are they else going to play at second base? There's nobody there. They got rid of a bunch of people. Come on, just no. Let's stop with the Tony Kemp.
I was kidding. My goodness.
Yeah, I know, but there's someone out there that might believe it, because there are people touting him at some point in his career. We're gonna finish off with JT Brubaker. He has looked really good. I think people kind of ignored him coming into the season because he pitches in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is not a team you want players on, right? But it's still a great place to pitch. PNC Park is a pitcher's ballpark. He's looked really good to start the year. Carlos, are you interested in picking up Brubaker?
I'm a little concerned about his striking ability, to be honest. He is sitting under 20% on K minus BB percentage, and that won't get you too far in this time and age of in MLB, to be honest. You need to be a little bit above that in the mid-20s to be really successful, because you're going to get a lot of balls in place, and nowadays balls in place means homers. So that's something that I'm a little bit worried about. Let's say I'm in a hold and wait situation. I'm not looking to get him or jumping the gun on him. I think I need to watch more.
Mike, what about you?
I like what I've seen thus far. There's really not a lot of changes that he's made from last year. I mean, there's some slight pitch mix changes, but overall, his strikeout ability, like right now, he's sitting on literally the same exact swinging strike rate that he had in 2020, which is almost 12%. League average for starters is usually about 9 to 10%. So he's a little bit above average in the swinging strike rate department. I don't think he has a put away pitch necessarily. And last year, with the same swinging strike rate, he had a 23% strikeout percentage. This year, it's at 27% right now. The 8% walk rate is where I'm a little bit more concerned, because if you're going to be a little bit lower on the strikeout percentage range, which it's fully expected to be lower than 27%, then I usually want a guy that's going to be in the 5 to 6% walk rate range. And last year he had some slight issues getting over that hump as well in the walk percentage rate. So the pro is right now over 3 starts, he's looked really good. Only 1 home run given up, and it was at home actually. His 2 away starts, he didn't give up a homer, but Chicago, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, all people in division. That's a good sign. 2.98 expected ERA so far in 3 starts is great, but it is a little bit worse than his 1.76 actual ERA. The WHIP right now is 104. I expect that to go up into the 1.2 to 1.3 range, probably closer to 1.3. So albeit like people didn't expect much at all from him this year. So I think that ultimately we're going to get a lot more than we expected or didn't expect at all. But I don't think it's going to be nearly as good as what we've seen thus far either. I think you're looking more at like a closer to 4 ERA with a 1.3-ish WHIP with some strikeout to walk rates that aren't great, but we're probably going to end up being somewhere around league average, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, I would say temper expectations, but I definitely like what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a guy that you want to run out there for every start for sure, right. But especially when he's pitching at home, there's some big bats in that division, but there are a lot of teams in that division that strike out a ton, including the Cubs, including the Brewers, both near the top of strikeout rate from teams so far this year. And I don't think that's going to change necessarily. You want to probably avoid Cincinnati a little bit, but I think he's kind of like a stream and hold guy, right? So you pick him up, you put him in good matchups, and then you put him on your reserve list. I'd like to see him throw the curveball more. One of the things we saw in the last start was he stopped throwing the curveball throughout the start. I think the curveball is actually his best pitch, and I'd like to see him lean on that a little bit more and kind of take the pedal off a little bit on the fastball and give him just a little bit better pitch mix. But I'm definitely interested. His command is, I think, better than it was advertised. And if he can continue to mix the pitches a little bit better, I think he's going to be, like Mike said, like I'm thinking like a 4 ERA, like a 1.27 type WHIP, like with a close to a strikeout an inning. Like that's a very usable pitcher in this day and age, especially when we're seeing guys get blown the hell up.
Yeah, they need to tally innings there. It's not like they have all these starters that they can just throw out there. I mean, they're going to need somebody to go out there and get a significant amount of innings for them. So he really has the leash to go probably as much as he can.
Especially because Chad Kuhl apparently can only go 2 innings before he gives up 8 runs.
Correct. Correct. Same with Giolito today. My God, what the hell?
I'm going to have nightmares with Chad Kuhl.
I think Giolito's like me. He's not a morning guy. Like I don't know why. Why throw your ace at 8 o'clock in the? Well, I guess it was 11 o'clock in the morning. Still, like these guys are up playing video games till 2 o'clock in the morning. They're not, right. or worse. Giolito seems like a pretty straight laced dude. So, but that's gonna do it for this episode. Carlos, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh no, man! The pleasure was total, man. Justin, it was really cool to be hanging out with you guys and. I mean, thanks for everything you guys do around, and anytime I'm here to help whatever I can.
We'll definitely have you back. It was a pleasure. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media, and then plug everything you do.
Sure. On Twitter at CA Marcano, CAMARCANO, and usually I have a weekly article in Pitcher List and sometimes in Prospects 365 and 6-Man Rotation.
And Mike, where can people reach you, and what are you working on right now?
Yeah, you can reach me on Twitter at Mike Werner FWFB. When I'm not working, 80 hours a week at my actual job, I write daily matchups columns and facts balloons columns at Baseball HQ. I somehow find the time, so check it out.
There you go. You can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. I'm writing daily at Fangraphs, pretty close to daily at Fantasy Alarm. You can hear me on this podcast, TGFBI podcast, and the Sleeper in the Bus podcast. Forgot where I was for a second there. And I feel like I'm missing something, but who knows?
You definitely are.
Yeah, I'm sure. I am. I'm missing a few screws, that's for sure. But that will do it for this episode. For Carlos, Mike, and myself, thank you for listening or watching. Have a fantastic baseball season.